What's up, guys? Welcome back to the HCP podcast. As always, make sure you are subscribed, click that bell. We got fantasy today, a very slam-packed week for wide receivers last week. Running backs were kind of quiet, David Montgomery topping, but let's just roll right into it. Got a big week. Fantasy season is starting to come to an end, so this is going to be a big week for a lot of you guys out there. Playoffs are coming soon, so let's help you up, set you up, especially starting off with the studs and duds for this week. I want to hear, who do you think is going to be the biggest player coming out of this bunch of players?
You might question me on this one, but somebody's back this week that we've been waiting on for a little while. Christian McCaffrey. He's playing Denver this week. He's the stud of the week in my book. We saw what he did coming back. You might have a questions like, oh, he's coming back. They might not use him as much as they usually do. But no, we saw his comeback game a few weeks ago, and they used him. He was the
Phenomenally well.
workhorse again. Yeah, I mean, expect that again. Honestly, I expect a 30-point performance from McCaffrey this week.
And then for my stud, I think Herbert's going to be angry. And you know who's his number one guy? Give me Keenan Allen as the stud this week against Atlanta. I feel like this Chargers team is going to come in here on a vendetta. They're going to come here mad. Hunter Henry could have a great week. Keenan Allen, I think, is going to have a spectacular week. Yeah, CMC is good, but this Denver run defense, it isn't the easiest to run against, but it's CMC, so I did kind of consider putting him up there. But Keenan Allen, this matchup against Atlanta is just too good to just not put him up there as the stud. I feel like Keenan Allen will have a huge week this week. And then as my dud, you're dead to me, Miles Sanders. You are dead to me, okay? And it's not really because of you, bud. You're getting like 6-8 carries a game. I don't know why Doug Peterson just decided to just go brain dead and not use you, but I mean, you can't really do much about it. So yeah, he plays San Francisco this upcoming week, I believe. No, he doesn't play San Francisco. I believe he plays New Orleans. So yeah, you know what? Yeah, Miles Sanders probably is going to put up more than 8 this week. He hasn't done it in the past 2 weeks. So yeah, Miles Sanders, absolute dud. This guy shouldn't even be in your starting lineup. I know he's a little bit reliant. He was a running back one like early season, but no, Miles Sanders is not going to have a good week here at all. He's not even breaking into my top 15 this week.
All right, well, I'm going with Robert Woods, considering how good New England's defense has been playing, considering how good Stephon Gilmore has been playing since he's come back from his injury. He's going back to last year. I mean, he was a little shaky in the beginning of the year. Everyone thought, oh, last year was just was a fake season. But he's getting back to where he usually is. He locked down Keenan Allen. He locked down D-Hop the prior week. And that's not the only guy that we have. We got safety help over the top, J.C. Jackson with another pick. I'm going with Robert Woods. All of his owners are probably really excited. He's been having really good weeks the past 3 or 4 weeks, but I wouldn't be too high on him as you usually are this week.
All right, and let's get right into our rankings, start helping you out. Let's start off with the running backs this week. At number 1, I was going to put CMC, but you know what? Derrick Henry just owns Jacksonville, and he didn't have a good week, I believe, when he played him earlier on in the season, and he also didn't have a good week this past week. But, I mean, Derrick Henry, if you know that infamous 99-yard touchdown run, it was against Jacksonville. So I feel like Henry is going to be the best running back coming out of this week. Jacksonville 28th against running backs still. Yeah, it's going to be a great matchup for Derrick Henry. Could be a huge day for him. At 2, CMC against Denver. Now that he's back, he's going to be that second or first running back every single week because he gets the volume in the run and phenomenal all around. 3, give me James Robinson against Tennessee. James Robinson continues to impress people, continues to be the waiver wire pickup of the century, it seems like. Tennessee, a great matchup for him. Once again, I believe they're 24th against running backs. Give me Aaron Jones as the running back 4 on the week. A great matchup for him. Detroit sucks against running backs, and yeah, I mean, I can't help but put him as far as high up as I am, especially with the huge, I think it was like a 77-yard touchdown run that he had against Philadelphia. At 5, give me Dalvin Cook. Can't put him too low because of his volume. Tampa, they've given up a lot of big performances in the wide receiver game and the running game. So yeah, can't put Cook. Last week, I mean, he got a touchdown. He was getting used a little bit more. He's starting to get back up to that reliable phase. But Philly, across the season, of course, they gave up that big touchdown run to Aaron Jones last week. But across the season, they've been pretty good. So I'm going to keep Alvin Kamara at 6 on my rankings. At 7, give me Austin Eckler against Atlanta. I said earlier, I think this Chargers team is going to be angry from last week, and I feel like they're going to come out against this Atlanta defense firing. And Eckler, if this offense is running well, Eckler's going to be having a good week. So put him there at 7. At 8, give me David Montgomery against Houston. Kid has looked impressive these past couple of weeks. 25, 27, 31 against running backs. Houston is another great matchup for Montgomery here. And he seems to be the only guy producing besides Allen Robinson. So, yeah, I mean, Montgomery, you've been playing like a running back 1. So why don't I put you up there with the other guys? Put you on 8. At number 9, if he's back, because I don't know what the hell is with this Detroit team. They can't get Kenny Golladay back, but if DeAndre Swift is back, give me him at 9 against Green Bay. Of course, Miles Sanders didn't do much last week because he didn't really get the volume. But if Swift is back for Detroit, this offense is going to be a lot better. This offense is going to be firing, and Swift is a huge part of this Detroit offense. So give me him at 9. At 10, give me Chris Carson. Put up 20 against New York last week. Looked great, looked up to form, and he plays the Jets this week, an even better matchup. So yeah, Chris Carson rounding off the top 10. At 11, I dropped Nick Chubb a little bit here because he didn't have all that great of a performance earlier on in the year against Baltimore. And Baltimore is still a great it really is still a great defense against the running backs. Like I said, I don't know how good Zeke did against Baltimore. I haven't watched that game yet. It just hasn't come on at the time that we're recording this. So if Zeke goes off, then yeah, Chubb probably ends up going up. But that doesn't happen because Zeke is trash. But yeah, Chubb at 11. I don't feel like he'll have the greatest week, but you can't put him any lower than that. At 12, Myles Gaskin came back. He had that fumble, which kind of took off a lot of points, but Kansas City, they're 20th against running backs this year. I'm going to put Myles Gaskin a little bit higher than others would, but he looks great. I like Myles Gaskin, especially with the amount of work he's been getting with Miami. So, yeah, against Kansas City, I think Myles Gaskin is around that running back 12 spot for the week. At Gordon, I have coming off of a huge week against Carolina. I have him at 13. He could have a big week, or it could be Lindsey. You never know with this Denver backfield, but I like Gordon better. I'm going to put him at 13. At 14, give me Zeke against Cincinnati. Cincinnati is not that great against the running backs, and their whole team is just not really all that great right now. Tyler Boyd was about the only shining star, and he didn't even play for the full game. So, yeah, give me Zeke at 14 against Cincinnati. And at 15, rounding it off, give me Wayne Gallman against Arizona. Now, I bet you got some of y'all are curious, why isn't Antonio Gibson anywhere up there? Well, that's because he's questionable. And from what I've been seeing, it looks like it could be turf toe or a knee injury. So I would monitor that closely, and I would definitely get active on the waiver wire this week, especially active because Gibson is a huge part of some of y'all's offense. And if y'all did start him, y'all took a big hit this week. So I don't think Gibson is going to play. From what especially if it's turf toe, I definitely don't expect him to play. So please make sure you are smart and you plan out for Gibson to not be in your lineup. But yep, that's my top 15. Let's get into the wide receivers this week.
Wide receivers, I did not put him at 1 last week, but he's back. The return of the king. At number 1, Davante Adams playing Detroit. Very good matchup. It doesn't matter what matchup Davante Adams has at this point. 34-point week last week. He's the number 1 receiver. Number 2, Tyreek Hill. He had 14 points last week. He plays Miami this week. He had 2 touchdowns taken away from him, though. If you add those 2 touchdowns onto that 14 points, I mean, that's a 30-point week. Maybe even more, considering the yards. But he got robbed this week. I wouldn't worry about him at all. He's still, I think, the number 2 option. Number 3, again, Keenan Allen finds his home here at number 3 against Atlanta this week. Very good matchup. He did struggle last week facing against a good defense, though, but I expect him to bounce back like crazy this week. Like you said, you had him at your stud. Expect those kind of stud numbers because you said Herbert is hungry. Coming off of a bad loss, expect him to pick it up against Atlanta. Number 4, let's go DK Metcalf. Seahawks got to pick it up against the Jets. I don't see how they have that kind of game again. Metcalf at 13 last week. Expect a good performance out of Metcalf. Number 5, call me crazy, but Justin Jefferson, he's at 5. He's underlooked, man. A 27-point week last week. He has been so consistent for 5 weeks in a row. And I think this is where he sits compared to every other guy because the targets and the volume is just crazy for Jefferson right now. That's what makes a consistent wide receiver right there. The touchdowns, they're volatile, but what makes a receiver that you can rely on is those yards and those targets. That volume is what creates a wide receiver 1 that you can rely on every week. Number 6, let's go with DeAndre Hopkins. He had 19 last week. He's playing the Giants. this week. Not the best matchup, but not the worst. It's D-Hop. He showed out when we didn't think he would versus the Rams last week. So I wouldn't expect anything worse than wide receiver 6 numbers right here. Number 7, A.J. Brown. I debated putting him a lot higher. He plays Jacksonville, who is terrible against receivers. He didn't have the best week last week because Corey Davis went off. We see them flip-flop a lot, but you got to have Brown higher than Corey Davis. He has that insane big playability, touchdowns almost every week. Expect him to go off against Jacksonville. Number 8, Adam Thielen. He still ended up having a good week, even though Jefferson shined. He's playing Tampa this week, just like Jefferson. They're not the best, but not the worst matchup. Number 9, Stephon Diggs. Put up 19 last night on Monday Night Football. He's just a target hog, man. He's playing Pittsburgh. You talked about the loss of some of those defenders over there in the last episode. Yeah, they're getting weaker on defense as the weeks go on. Expect Diggs to have that consistent week that he usually does. Number 10, this is debatable, but I'm going Julio Jones over Calvin Ridley. Julio, he had 15 points last week along with Ridley. They play the Chargers. Pretty good matchup for Julio. Expect him to do pretty well this week, and he might even be a lot higher next week, depending on what he does. Number 11, let's go Allen Robinson. 13-point week last week. He's bringing in those targets with Trubisky as quarterback. I really like Trubisky for fantasy for Allen Robinson. He's playing against Houston, a really good matchup. A lot of these receivers have good matchups this week. Calvin Ridley at 12, you could flip-flop him or Julio. We don't really know, but it seems like Calvin Ridley is that more consistent because of that touchdown upside every single week. It looks like Julio is getting more targets, but Calvin Ridley had an even week with Julio last week, so you can't really debate which one is doing better right now. Number 13, a guy that's really overlooked, Deontay Johnson. He had a really good week against Washington. Plays Buffalo this week, though. We've seen Tre'Davious White playing a lot better lately. We don't know the wide receiver rankings on Pittsburgh, though. Corners guard each and every one of them different. Sometimes it's Juju as the wide receiver 1, sometimes Deontay. He has been very consistent, though, the past couple of weeks. Number 14, let's go with Michael Thomas. He put up 19, but I just don't trust him enough to put him really high like he used to be with Taysom Hill as the quarterback. That's just not the best thing for him. It's good. It's good because he looks to Michael Thomas a lot more than any other receiver, but he just doesn't throw it as much as Drew Brees does. And number 15, I couldn't leave him out after the week he had last week. Corey Davis, good matchup against Jacksonville, 35-point last week. Expect him. I mean, he could turn into the target hog of that offense, but I don't know. I just think it's A.J. Brown's week to shine, but you can't leave Corey Davis out of this top 15.
All right, and then got you hooked up with the QBs at number 1. Give me Mahomes. At number 2, give me Russell Wilson against New York. It's the Jets. If you don't have a good week against the Jets, dude, please fix something over there. Pete Carroll, maybe Pete Carroll's the one that needs to be fixed. Highly doubt that, though. But at 3, he's been getting bumped up in QB rankings all over the place, and he plays Detroit this week. So give me Aaron Rodgers at number 3. He's going to have a phenomenal week here against Detroit. At number 4, give me Deshaun Watson against Chicago. Nobody can stop Deshaun Watson except for himself. He was going to have a good week last week, I believe, over 20, but then he had that fumble at the end. So, yeah, Watson continues to be a great QB. At number 5, give me Herbert against Atlanta. The only reason I don't have him higher, especially over Watson, is because you got to take last week into an account. I do think he's going to come back firing, but when you compare him to these other guys, you can't really rank him over there. So, yeah, give me Herbert at 5 against Atlanta. Still going to have a phenomenal week. Kyler Murray at 6. He hasn't been playing too phenomenally well, but I can't deny that rushing upside and the weapons that he has over there going up against New York. Their defense coming off of a huge win. But yeah, I mean, this could be another week where Giants could just upset and just put the Cardinals even further down into a hole that almost seemingly that they've dug themselves into. But the only guy who can dig them out of there is Kyler Murray. So give him there at the 6th quarterback spot. At 7, give me Josh Allen against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, their defense, like we've said multiple times, it seems like it's going to be very banged up next week. Don't know how long that Joe Hayden's going to be out, but yeah, Josh Allen against Pittsburgh, he continues to be good. I believe he put up 30 on Monday Night Football, so Another great week from Josh Allen. At 8, give me Tannehill against Jacksonville. You put both Corey Davis and A.J. Brown into the top 15, which is very deserving because Tannehill is going to be thrown to them a lot in this game. This is going to be an offensive powerhouse here from Tennessee. At 9, give me Lamar Jackson against Cleveland. Lamar, I believe he had a good week against Cleveland at the beginning of the year. And, it depends if he played good against Dallas. I'm expecting that he does. Then he hopefully gets into that groove to where he can come out there, give the Ravens a little bit of traction. And if they can beat Cleveland, the only guy who's going to be able to give them that traction there is Lamar. But yeah, they played without Mark Andrews against Dallas, so they're going to have Mark Andrews back expectedly. So he's going to have that big target there again. And J.K. Dobbins could possibly be used and have another great week here against Cleveland. And at 10, give me Tom Brady against Minnesota. Minnesota's secondary is bad, and even though QB defensive rankings are weird, if a secondary is bad, in my opinion, then that means the QB has got to be doing some sort of good if his wide receivers are doing good. So give me Tom Brady here at 10 against Minnesota.
All right, the tight ends. Number 1 is still Kelsey. I don't care what Waller does. Kelsey will always be that number 1 spot, considering how consistent he is. And he almost had a 30-point week. He's playing Miami this week. Number 2, let's go with Darren Waller, obviously, after an amazing week of 45 points. He does have a tough matchup this week, though, against Indiana. We'll see how that plays out, but definitely get that guy into your lineup. Number 3, TJ Hawkinson, 15-point week. He's playing Green Bay this week. Green Bay's not the best versus tight ends, but it's Hawkinson. He's been very surprisingly consistent this year, all year. Number 4, somebody I really like, and I've been talking about him for a few weeks now, of how you got to get this guy. You got to start him. Tanyan, 3 straight weeks with a touchdown. I talked about a few weeks earlier saying how Devontae Adams coming back hurt him really bad, but he stepped it up a lot in the past few weeks. He's playing Detroit. Expect him to have one of those 10, 15-point weeks that he's been having for 4 weeks in a row. Number 5, I could not talk about this guy this week. Gesicki with 23 points. He's playing the Chiefs. If he can keep those targets up every week, expect him to go back to who we thought he was going to be at the beginning of the season until he started tanking. He got 11 targets. Hopefully he gets that every week, and that would be really good for him. Number 6, Dallas Goedert. 11-point week last week. He's playing New Orleans this week, who sucks versus tight ends. Goddard, he's been a super good tight end the past few weeks. 11 is not the best, but he did have those 2 huge weeks before that. Number 7, coming off of his bye week, I think you're getting him into your lineups off of that big game that he had. Gronk, he's playing Minnesota. He had that insane game. Well, not insane, but a really good game yardage-wise. He did not get a touchdown, though, but he's playing Minnesota. Pretty beat-up secondary. Like Gronk at 7 this week. Number 8, Eric Ebron. He had a good week, too. And he's playing Buffalo this week, whose defense has been pretty shaky. Jordan Reed last night put up pretty good numbers against them. Number 9, Evan Ingram. He's playing Arizona. He had a 7-point week. That's why he dropped so much. I had him at 3 last week. But he's the number one receiver on that offense, in my opinion, still, even after a lackluster week. Number 10, this was tough, but I had to put Logan Thomas in there after his efforts in that last week. 24-point week, playing against San Francisco. I like him at 10.
All right, and then let's get straight into our waiver wire rankings. I do want to hear who you have at running back because mine isn't really based off a matchup. It's just based off of circumstance.
I think you're thinking the same thing as me. I'm not sure, though. Cam Akers, hopefully he can take over this backfield. He got 21 carries. Darrell Henderson did steal a touchdown from him, though. I think Cam Akers will be a good pickup, and he's going to be a good flex option going into the playoffs.
Actually, I had J.D. McKissick. He's 34.8% owned. He was getting dropped once Antonio Gibson started to take that lead. But because, he looked phenomenal. 10 for 10 with his targets. That is a PPR machine. And if Gibson is out this week, I don't care what the matchup is. McKissick is going to get used, and he's going to get used phenomenally well like he usually is. So McKissick is going to be a phenomenal add from the waiver wire. So that's why I was saying keeping an eye on Gibson because Especially going into the playoffs, Gibson is a huge part. And if this turf toe or knee injury, whatever the hell it is, ends up keeping him out as long as it might, then McKissick would be a great handcuff for Gibson. Even though Barber is getting the handoffs on the ground, that passing game is just so much better when it's being used with McKissick because Alex Smith is the check down god. So yeah, 34.8% owned in NFL leagues. So that means he should probably be available for most of you out there. So go pick up J.D. McKissick. And on the wide receiver side of things, I'd be surprised if you didn't have this guy because he's coming off of a lot of targets. A great week, especially with Will Fuller being suspended. 5.2% owned. Guy who had a huge increase in targets and will continue to get that. Give me Kiki Kuti, probably the best name I've ever heard in my life. But 5.2% owned. I mean, he's going to be a big pickup for guys who really do need that elite wide receiver talent. And Brandon Cooks, he's still going to be that number one guy, but Kuti seems to be coming up and really emerging as more of a deep threat, not really a deep threat, but just a target, a machine over there in Houston.
I got to talk about T.Y. Hilton. After 2 weeks where we've seen his targets go up a lot, uh, is he back? I don't know. None of us know. Hopefully he keeps this up, though, because I would love to see T.Y. Hilton get back to where he used to be. That dude was an absolute monster, especially for fantasy. Hopefully Rivers looks to him as much as he has been the past 2 weeks. I think he isn't a bad pickup. I think Michael Pittman still is the number one receiver, but T.Y. Hilton, if he can keep this up, it's going to be great for fantasy owners. If you drafted him and you still have him, or if he's on the waiver wire for you.
And then on the defensive side, streamers are. This is not a good week for streamers, especially. There's just not a lot of great like defenses that would be good enough against a good matchup are just not. They don't. None of them have good matchups. So it was really tough picking a streamer this week. But I gotta go with the team that I feel like will be able to get some turnovers, even though they have a very poor rush defense. Mitch Trubisky sucks. So I'm going to go with the Texans as a defensive streamer this week. This is a very iffy one, though, because there's not, like I said, there's not really a lot of good streamers out there, but Trubisky could intercept it, fumble, you never know. So, yeah, I feel like Texans would be not the worst streaming option here against Chicago, even though Monty will probably end up having a very good week once again.
All right. Well, a lot of people might have dropped the Saints in your league, considering they played Atlanta, a good offense last week. And if they did pick them up this week, they play Philly. I don't care if Jalen Hurts is in. He still threw a pick in that last game. I wouldn't. Saints are such a good defense that I wouldn't drop them at all. They're going into a really good playoff schedule. They do have to play the Chiefs on Week 15 though. Week 16 they have a good matchup though. Playing Philly, the 30th team, and giving up points to defenses. Saints are looking to have a really good week and at least get a couple turnovers.
All right, guys, and that wraps up everything here for this week. We got to, I mean, there's not the greatest, especially for streamers, but when it comes to, there's a lot of big potential here. CMC is finally coming back for some of you guys out there. So this is going to be hopefully a great week of fantasy football. I think we're going to have some phenomenal performances here, but yeah, starting to get in that playoff time. So yeah, this is going to be a very important week for some of y'all, but let's get into it. Fantasy is kind of it's kind of sad because this fantasy season has flown by a lot faster than I wanted it to. Really, this whole NFL season has flown by, but we're enjoying it while it lasts, and hopefully we're able to get y'all guys, especially finish that playoff run off if you're not already in it, and just or just ruin other people's weeks because that's what we're here for. But guys, hope you enjoyed all of our uploads this week. We'll see you guys next week. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button, sub, make sure you have those notifications on, and yeah, see you next week. Peace.